Hi, and welcome to DrupalBrief. This is an AI-generated summary of another video, podcast, or blog post. If you want to learn more about what's being discussed here, then please go check out the source. This podcast is produced by the team at DrupalForge. DrupalForge is the new #1 open-source development and hosting platform. It has all the functionality of the expensive platforms, but at very affordable prices. If you're looking for a new hosting provider, contact us for a demo before you get locked in. Okay, that's it. Make sure to click subscribe, and here we go.
Have you ever wondered what happens when someone deep in the WordPress world, a real expert, just dives headfirst into Drupal, like attending DrupalCon?
Yeah, what would they actually find?
Exactly.
Yeah.
What are the unexpected similarities, and what differences really stand out, maybe challenge their ideas? Well, today, that's exactly what we're going to explore. We're doing a deep dive into the experience of Chris Reynolds. He's a WordPress pro who went all in at DrupalCon. And our mission really is to pull out the key takeaways for you, the listener, give you a shortcut to understanding these two massive web platforms and their communities. They're really vibrant.
And Chris is a great person for this. He's a developer advocate at Pantheon now, but has this really deep WordPress background. Think agencies like Human Made, Web Dev Studios, because he's got this unique perspective looking across both. And we're basically going to extract the most important bits of knowledge from that adventure for you.
Okay, so let's unpack how he even ended up at DrupalCon. I mean, a longtime WordPress person going to a major Drupal event, especially moving into DevRel.
Yeah, what was the trigger?
Well, apparently inside Pantheon, DrupalCon is a huge deal.
Yeah.
Talk it up all year. So that definitely got him curious, to see the other side himself.
Okay. Internal buzz. Makes sense.
And here's where it gets really interesting, I think. He found this shared feeling, this sentiment at DrupalCon Atlanta, summed up on a sticker.
A sticker, okay.
Yeah, it said, "Come for the code, stay for the community."
Oh, wow.
And he said that just resonated so strongly. Like, that's exactly his experience in WordPress, too.
Yeah.
For so many people, it's less about the specific software.
And more about the people. Yeah.
Right, the people building it, supporting it.
That's fascinating because fundamentally the people in both camps, they're pretty similar, aren't they? They're tackling similar problems, contribution, governance.
Just with slightly different code underneath.
Exactly. The human element seems really consistent across both.
So, okay, what about the conferences themselves? DrupalCon versus, say, a big WordCamp. We have the flagships like WordCamp US, Europe, Asia, then the local ones.
Right. How did they compare structurally?
He felt DrupalCon was actually very similar in structure to a flagship WordCamp. Same kind of tracks, keynotes, felt familiar.
Okay.
But one massive difference jumped out immediately. The price.
Wow, the cost of the ticket.
Yeah. A big WordCamp, multi-day, you're looking at maybe $50, right? DrupalCon, significantly more expensive.
And that difference really points to a fundamental split in how they fund things, doesn't it?
How so?
Well, the WordPress side, through the community support nonprofit, they really aim to keep events basically at cost. They rely heavily on sponsors to make it accessible.
Okay.
Whereas the Drupal Association, they use DrupalCon revenue directly. It's a primary funding stream for Drupal.org itself, all its services.
So the conference pays for the project infrastructure.
In large part, yeah. They do offer discounts, for students and things to keep it accessible to some degree, but it's a very different financial model underpinning it all.
Interesting. Okay, so our sources also flag this fascinating bit of tech Chris ran into. The Drupal shortcode module.
Shortcodes in Drupal. Okay, tell me more.
Yeah. So for anyone not familiar with the WordPress version, think of them like little magic words or macros you put in your content.
Right, like square brackets, maybe a keyword.
Exactly. And boom, it turns into an image gallery or a video or some dynamic thing. And you can even wrap content in them, nest them.
WordPress has had those forever.
Well, this Drupal module exists, created back in 2010. Dennis Sabeau from Tag One, and it's actually still maintained, supports Drupal 9.3, 10, 11.
Wow, okay. And people use it.
Over 13,000 sites, apparently. Although, fair warning, something like 70% of those are still Drupal 7 sites.
Okay, so maybe less common on modern Drupal.
Seems possible. But here's the thing. Chris's reaction to even the idea of shortcodes in Drupal was intense.
Oh, really? How so?
He described it as a love-hate but mostly hate relationship. He basically said, look, shortcodes solved an interesting problem, like way back when, before Gutenberg, before blocks made embedding stuff easier in WordPress.
Right. They filled a gap.
But now he feels they're just not the right tool for the job. He even called nested shortcodes, especially the kind you see in some old page builders.
Oh, God, yeah.
Nightmare fuel. Because migrating that content later, it's incredibly difficult. Sounds like he's been burned really hard by shortcodes.
Yeah, I can see that. It really gets at a core tension, doesn't it? Like easy embedding now versus long-term content structure and portability. And Drupal usually handles these things differently, right? You've got custom HTML elements in the media system. You've got entity embed. You've even got tokens.
The Drupalisms.
Exactly. The established Drupal ways of doing things. So the question becomes, why bring in a WordPressism like shortcodes when Drupal already has robust solutions? Seems a bit redundant, maybe.
Well, we did find one specific example. A client who came from WordPress started using the shortcode module in Drupal. They wanted to show dynamic stats like, X units of work saved, updating constantly.
Okay, a specific use case.
But they ran into issues, caching problems, trouble integrating with Seek-Editor 5. And they ended up switching.
To what?
To Drupal's native tokens, using the token filter module. The Drupal way just worked better for them in the end.
Interesting. So maybe the module has its place, but it's niche, perhaps for power users or teams migrating from WordPress who already think that way.
That seems plausible.
Chris did mention something interesting, though, this idea of a GUI editor for shortcodes, making them easier for non-coders. That changes the dynamic a bit, maybe moves them beyond just being a power user thing.
True. Okay, let's switch gears. What did Chris think WordCamps could learn from DrupalCon, especially the big ones? He had thoughts on that pricing difference.
Yes, the $50 ticket.
He felt pretty strongly, actually. He argued that bumping the price even to $100, maybe $150, probably wouldn't stop people from coming.
And the extra money could do what?
Could fund other community projects, maybe?
Yeah.
Or even, he suggested, offer speaker compensation, which, is pretty standard at other tech conferences he goes to.
Yeah, that's a whole other discussion in the WordPress world. But it ties back to that funding model difference we talked about.
How so?
Well, the Drupal Association can fund things directly from DrupalCon money. In WordPress, it's more decentralized. You see these community efforts pop up, like WP Community Collective or the Farrell Project for Security.
Right, but they often operate outside the main official WordPress project funding channels?
Exactly. It's a different way of supporting the ecosystem. Centralized funding versus more grassroots, community-led initiatives. Both have pros and cons, I suppose.
Okay, so flipping it again. What did Chris miss at DrupalCon? What did he expect to see based on WordCamps that wasn't there?
Fewer parties.
Bingo. He noticed fewer after-parties and general networking stuff happening in the evenings. He mentioned WordCamp US in Portland, similar size attendee-wise to DrupalCon Atlanta. And he was basically party hopping every single night there.
Huh. Okay, so maybe a slightly different social vibe.
Seemed like it. But he did highlight something unique to DrupalCon.
What was that?
These booth demos. He described them as almost mini conferences happening right on the expo floor. Partners sharing their stories, showcasing their work.
Oh, interesting. Like Pantheon had partners presenting at their booth.
Exactly. And he felt this pointed to a really collaborative spirit in the Drupal community, like a rising tide lifts all boats. Companies sharing insights, even business secrets to help everyone.
Yeah, that's often cited as a Drupal strength. He contracted that with WordPress.
He did. He felt the WordPress ecosystem, maybe because of the huge paid plugin market, can sometimes feel a bit more competitive, more proprietary. He definitely seemed to appreciate that collaborative vibe he picked up in Drupal.
Makes sense.
All right. Chris definitely has some, let's call them strong opinions on features he wishes WordPress had that Drupal does really well. Let's get into this wish list.
Okay, the Drupal envy list. What's first?
Database architecture. He just thinks Drupal's is cleaner, more optimized. He specifically called out WordPress putting full, hard-coded URLs right in the database content.
Oh, yeah, the Drupal posts table good and content replacements. That can be a real pain for migrations. Moving between environments, you often need special tools or careful search and replace.
Exactly. Sounds like a headache he thinks Drupal avoids.
Okay, what else?
Composer support. He sees Drupal's integration with Composer, that's the PHP dependency manager, as a huge strength.
Right. Drupal core is basically built around Composer now. How does that compare to WordPress?
WordPress doesn't really have native Composer support in the same way. People use it, sure, but it often requires third-party tools or workflows built on top.
And he mentioned issues with paid plugins in that context.
Yeah, apparently managing paid plugins via Composer and WordPress can be tricky, especially with how some handle licensing or updates. It can clash badly with modern hosting setups that use, like, read-only file systems in production for security.
Yeah, that's a classic enterprise versus hobbyist tension, maybe.
Yeah.
Balancing advanced workflows with keeping things simple for beginners. It's interesting, Drupal went all in on Composer for core installation.
But ironically, he noted, the easy way to install Drupal CMS still starts with downloading a zip or tarball file.
The old ways persist. Okay, what else is on the wish list for WordPress?
Better dependency management for plugins generally. He likes Drupal's system, using those .info files to declare versions and dependencies clearly. He feels WordPress's approach is newer, less baked in. And the big one, config management.
Oh, yeah. Huge difference.
Drupal lets you export your site's configuration views, content types, settings into files, right? Then you can version control them, import them into another environment.
Exactly. Dev, staging, production, keep them in sync reliably. It's fundamental to a lot of Drupal workflows.
Whereas WordPress
Often involves manual clicks in the admin, maybe some database syncing, plugins that try to bridge the gap. But it's not as clean or native. He used the word terrifying for the amount of production database meddling common in WordPress workflows.
Yikes. Okay, one more big one he mentioned. Responsive images.
How images are handled for different screen sizes. This is a good one.
He praised Drupal's approach. It generates specific image sizes, like thumbnails or medium versions, only when they're actually requested by a browser, dynamically.
Right. On demand. And if a size is missing, it can often regenerate it.
Contrast that with WordPress.
WordPress tends to generate all the defined image sizes the moment you upload an image, whether you need them or not.
So, lots of extra files.
Potentially, yeah. Loads of unused thumbnails cluttering up your storage, which is why things like CDNs that handle image resizing or dedicated plugins are so common in the WordPress space. It can lead to significant storage bloat.
He gave a sense of scale, too. Like, a Drupal site might define 50 or 60 image styles or presets.
But only creates the ones being used, whereas WordPress might create those 60 variations for every single upload. Big difference in practice, especially for you, the listener, if you're managing a site with lots of images.
Definitely sounds more efficient on the Drupal side. Okay, let's flip the script one last time. What did Chris wish Drupal had from WordPress?
Oh, the WordPress features he missed. What topped the list?
The user interface, specifically the admin menu in core Drupal. He found it a bit unintuitive, maybe too nested.
Okay, the default admin UI. That's a common critique.
But he was really impressed with the Drupal CMS distribution. He said its UI felt much more structured, more familiar, and he liked its installation process, how it asks you about your site type, what content you need.
So a distribution fixed the UI issue for him. He felt it made more sense.
Yeah, made it a lot more sense to his brain, I think was the phrase.
And related to that, he likes some helper features in Drupal CMS.
Yes. Like the AI chatbot, he saw it as a really valuable tool, especially for newcomers. It guides you, teaches you how to find things in the UI.
Picking that learning curve less steep, that's smart.
Totally. Then, a smaller thing, but one he really missed.
Go on.
The simple one-click duplicate post, or clone entity function, that's super common in WordPress via plugins.
Yeah, just quickly copy something. Drupal doesn't have that built in as standard, though modules exist. He did acknowledge it gets complicated with multilingual sites, right?
He did. And apparently there's a new hook in Drupal now, hook entity duplicate, to help developers manage the cleanup needed when you do clone things. So, progress, maybe?
Maybe. Okay, any other WordPressisms he missed?
This one's kind of funny. He mentioned WordPress's function for handling deprecated code, doing it wrong.
Oh, yes, the slightly passive-aggressive warning.
He finds it really snarky. Compared to Drupal's deprecation warnings, which he feels are more straightforwardly informative, he thinks the WordPress one implies it's the developer's fault the code changed.
It definitely has a certain tone. A bit of an inside joke, maybe. Part of the WordPress culture. He mentioned other legacy bits in WordPress code, too, like old error messages.
Yeah, briefly mentioned a former cheating error message. Just those little historical artifacts and jokes embedded in the code base, it's clear doing wrong is, well, a thing.
A beloved, if slightly irritating thing, perhaps.
Right. So, wrapping up his experience, after seeing both sides up close at DrupalCon, what was his single biggest takeaway?
Let me guess. They're more alike than different.
You got it. More similar than different. And because of that, he feels there's a huge need for more talking between the communities, more cross-pollination.
Like events that deliberately bring both WordPress and Drupal folks together.
Exactly. To compare, contrast, learn from each other. He really wants to see more of that.
And connecting that to the bigger picture, he sees an opportunity now.
Yeah, he thinks Drupal might actually have a chance to innovate faster than WordPress right now, especially with recent signals from WordPress leadership about maybe slowing down core development a bit.
Interesting. Like, this is a key moment, a flux point, he called it. Both sides have learned a lot, and sharing that could benefit the whole open source web.
Seemed to be his view. So the final question for him, what would it actually take to, win him over fully to Drupal?
The ultimate conversion factor.
An intuitive admin user experience. That was his main point, making it easy for newcomers. He feels Drupal CMS is getting closer.
But maybe core Drupal still has a way to go on that front in his eyes, lowering that barrier to entry.
Exactly. Which leaves us with a question for you, the listener. We've heard about the strengths, the challenges, the different paths. Where do you see open source web development with giants like WordPress and Drupal heading in the next few years?
A lot to think about there.
We really hope this deep dive gave you some valuable perspectives, maybe influenced how you think about these platforms or your own work.
Yeah, it's been fascinating to unpack Chris's journey.
So thank you for joining us on this exploration of the WordPress and Drupal worlds, seen through a really unique lens.
And just remember, gathering different viewpoints, connecting those dots, that's really key to being well-informed today.
Absolutely. Keep doing your own deep dives, keep exploring these topics.
Definitely.
Until next time, we're off to find more fascinating stories to unpack.
Okay, we're done. To close off this podcast, I just wanted to remind you that this brief was a fully AI-generated summary, and we take no credit for the original content. If you want to learn more, then check out the source. This podcast is produced by the team at Drupal Forge. Drupal Forge is the new #1 open-source development and hosting platform. It has all the functionality of the expensive platforms, but at very affordable prices. If you're looking for a new hosting provider, contact us for a demo before you get locked in. And if you like this podcast, hit subscribe, post a link on social media, and recommend it to 2 friends. That's it. See you next time. Bye for now.